Real people, real celebrities, real talk.
Join the Breakfast Club.
Blast off in your
Weekday morning, 6 to 10.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the God. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest with us this morning.
Mr. Ron Davis.
Mr. Ron Davis. Now, if you don't know who Ron Davis is, Angela Yee, give us a little update of what's going on and
Well, we've been following the story
history of what's happening
in Jacksonville. And Ron Davis is the father of Jordan Davis, a 17-year-old who was in the gas station, who Michael Dunn was just found guilty on 3 counts of second-degree attempted murder for actually killing him recently. So
was he in the gas station or was he in a car? I thought he was in a car.
he was in a car in a gas station.
Okay.
And so we've been following this story very closely up here. Obviously, it brings into play the whole stand your ground law in Florida, which clearly is flawed and needs some changes. And I know your wife was saying that she feels like something has to be done to change that law.
Yeah, we're going to actually do something. We're going to go to Tallahassee and try to get this changed, which is the capital of Florida. One of the things is the jury instruction. You know, the lawyers for Michael Dunn, instead of filing for stand your ground, you know, when you file for it, you have to come before a judge. You have to put your cards on the table. You have to have your client testify for stand your ground. No defense lawyer wants to do that. You know, you don't want to put your cards on the table and all that. So what happens is they file for self-defense. And in the instruction for self-defense, there is a stand your ground instruction. So they get the benefit of doing it without having to actually file for it. So,
Right.
And that's what we're fighting. I mean, if you're going to use stand your ground, you need to file for it and put your cards on the table and have your client testify.
Right.
But, you know, so what they say is, okay, we're not going to do that. We're going to go to trial. We're going to say self-defense. And then in the instruction from the judge, he's going to say, well, you have to take into account what's the mind of the shooter. Take that into account. Why should you take that into account when he didn't file for stand your ground?
Right.
Well, you know, I'm not good on the law at all. I don't know, even though I've been in trouble numerous times. But how do you get charged with attempted murder but don't get charged with actual murder?
Well, before you do that, explain what stand your ground is. A lot of people might not know what the stand your ground law is.
Okay. Stand your ground law is basically attached to the castle doctrine. The castle doctrine is your home is your castle.
Right.
You know, and so what they're trying to do is extend it from your home to your car. From your car to your person. So in other words, everybody's walking around with this cover, you know, and stand your ground, saying that anytime that you're attacked with bodily force, that you're able to use bodily force without a duty to retreat.
So Charlamagne's a big black guy, right?
Right.
This big black guy comes up to this little light-skinned guy.
Right.
And he looks, I'm scared. He looks threatening.
Right.
So I can pull my pistol out and shoot him and saying I was standing my ground.
Right. And the judge asks you, what was your frame of mind? What was your thought process? Well, I felt threatened. I felt bodily harm was going to happen, and so that's why I pulled my gun out and shot him.
Wow.
And what's very confusing about this, about Michael Dunn in particular, is that even after the kids were driving off in the car, he still was shooting at the car as they were driving off.
Right.
And then he went back to his hotel, ordered pizza, had rum and Coke, and didn't say anything to his fiance about what had just happened.
Right.
You probably didn't think he hit nobody.
Well, and he knew in the morning after he got up that he hit somebody, that Jordan was killed. And instead of dialing 911 and say, you know what, I had a shootout last night. I didn't think to call 911, but I see on television this morning that I killed a kid. You know, instead of you dialing 911, telling the police that, you said, let's pack up, hotel, let's go home. You know, we got to take the dog home, you know, because the dog, you know, we don't want him caught up in this. And then when I get home, I'll take my time. And I really don't think I did anything wrong, so I'll tell the cops whenever I want to tell the cops. Never dialed 911 ever. Never contacted the police ever. You know, never told his fiance that the kids had a shotgun, and the kids had a shotgun. You know, if you got robbed, let's say, you know, you're in the car with your boys, or you're in the car with your wife, or you're in the car with your girlfriend. If somebody had a gun and they were going to shoot you, and you just had a shootout, wouldn't you tell them, say, you know, those guys tried to kill me, they had a shotgun? You would say something.
And you would call the cops, I would
Right.
think, as somebody who feels like you were in the right.
Right.
I'm defending myself. I would call the cops and say, hey, these kids have a gun.
Right.
They pulled, but there was no gun that was ever
No gun,
recovered,
no
and
gun.
he never reported it.
That's
So
right.
how does he get charged with attempted murder but not an actual murder?
Because they're separate acts. In other words, they felt that it was separate acts because of the fact that, okay, you're in your car, my son is in his car, you decided in your mind that you saw a gun. So you grab your gun and you start shooting at my son. Okay. The car backs away to try to get away from you because you're the only one shooting because, in fact, there is no gun. And then they start driving away from you. You jump out of your car. You run toward the back of your car. You get into a shooter's stance, and you start shooting at a defenseless 4 kids in a car, you know. So that's a separate act. In other words, when the car backed up and left, all the threat in your mind should have been saying the threat is gone.
Right.
Okay, but you couldn't leave it that way. So the second act is let me jump out of my car and try to kill every kid in that car. So that's why he got convicted.
Where was your son in that car? Was he driving or was
No, he was in the
passenger?
back seat in the passenger seat in the back.
Were the other passengers called as witnesses?
Yes.
Okay.
All the boys were called as witnesses, and they did a great job. His best friend Leland was in the back, and Tevin and Tommy, they were all called as witnesses. And on his case, he was like just lying all the way up and down, you know. He's saying there was a weapon. His girlfriend contradicted him. No, he never told me about a weapon, you know. The police said, why you didn't call 911? I didn't think I did anything wrong, you know, that kind of thing. There was a police in the area. Police was like a block away. You know, how come you didn't call 911? It could have been a police right there, or right on the scene. Within maybe 2-3 minutes, there was the police on the scene. You know, but you know.
Now, they've also released these phone calls that Michael Dunn has made while he's been in jail. And first of all, he did say that the kids were lying about what happened. And he also compared himself to a rape victim. He said he feels like he's getting blamed, even though he was just protecting himself. And he just feels like the cops, everybody's looking at him like he's the bad person. It seems like he's not taking any responsibility at all.
He's not. He's not taking any responsibility. He doesn't even understand that the first contact, when you pull up, the first thing he said within seconds of pulling up to the gas station, the kids were already there. I hate that thug music.
Right.
Well, what do you mean by I hate that thug music? What are you trying to say? You know, if you don't like the music, you pull into another spot. You know, there was another patron that came in, heard the music, and pulled into another spot, actually. You know, and then after you roll down your window and you say something to the boys, that's the first contact, is you making contact with them. You know, they holler at you, you holler at them, they turn down the music, you roll your window back up, and then all of a sudden, the music comes back up. Okay, so you say, well, you know what, they're not listening to me, and you say live and let live. The guy comes out the store, he's going right past you, you see him, he's getting ready to get in his car so they can drive away. So within a matter of 30 seconds, they would have been gone. And you see that. You're looking at the guy getting into the car, the driver, getting ready to leave. But you just look at that and you roll down your window again and you say to my son, what are you saying? Are you talking to me? Does that sound like somebody is afraid? If I say to you, are you talking to me?
Yeah,
that
but
sound like
he got
afraid.
that false sense of power because you know he got that gun and he got that law that
That's the bottom
can protect
line. That's the bottom line. So he takes the gun while the guy, the driver's getting into the car to drive away. That's when he starts shooting, when the guys are getting ready to drive away.
Now, juror number 8 has also done some interviews, and she said she doesn't think that this was a race-based incident. But at the same time, in the phone calls they've released of Michael Dunn in prison, he said things like, you know, he's in there by himself. He would rather be by himself than in a room with them animals. And then he said that he was in a room with 3 black men as well, and that he told them what he did straight up, and they said, you know, they said straight up, that's what they get. That's what he gets.
Well, you know, he lies about the things that he says, but he put on paper that, you know, 90% of the people in here are black and they're a bunch of idiots. And if we white people would get together, we should shoot all of them. That's what he put in some of his other letters.
Wow.
He wrote letters,
Wow.
and we have letters that's what he said. You know, that they're a bunch of idiots in here and we should shoot all of them.
So that's amazing to think that this is not a race-based incident when clearly he has an issue with black people.
Yeah, the juror,
And
you know,
thug music.
the black juror that came out, you know, she, you know, I don't think she was being genuine when she said that it's not race-based because, you know, when you look at the jury, out of 12 people, there were 2 black women.
No black men.
No black men. I mean, you know.
Aren't you supposed to be judged by a jury of your peers?
Yeah, even the victim should be judged by a jury of their peers. But, you know, in that system, it's not like that.
Yeah,
but I think that even if
difficult.
even if it was an all-white jury, we had enough facts of the case, you know, that they should have found him guilty of first degree
Yeah, I mean,
murder.
the biggest fact is your son is no longer here.
That's right.
That's
You know,
that
that is the biggest fact. The biggest fact. They didn't touch a hair on his head. They didn't even touch his car. There was not a scratch on his car.
Right.
So there's no deadly force that was against you. Nobody touched you. Nobody touched your car.
Right.
So how do you feel like you need to use deadly force against somebody who didn't touch a hair on your head?
Now, as a father, how do you stay grounded in being in court every day?
Yeah, how do you keep from
seeing
not
that
crying?
man and not jumping over there and trying to strangle him?
Right. You know, one time I did have to be kind of touched by my attorney, you know, because I felt myself going toward him. But, you know, at the end of the day, what they want to do is lock us up anyway, you know. So if I go in court and start acting up, that's not going to improve the legacy of Jordan Davis. You know, he don't want his father locked up or lose my freedom.
Right.
You know, because how much damage can you do? You run over to him, you do something to him, they
Punch
grab
him,
you,
get tackled,
they grabbed you, and then all of a sudden you're in jail.
Right.
That's not going to help the legacy of my son, and that's what I do. And the number one thing is to have the legacy of Jordan Davis that everybody knows. This was a great kid. This was a good kid. You know,
The sad part, he don't even get a chance to like build the legacy. He was only 17 years
He was
old.
only 17. He don't get the chance to get married for the first time, get his first apartment, get his first car, hang out with his boys for the first time in his own car, in his own apartment. He don't get any of that. That tears away from us as a family, you know. And that's what they don't understand, that, you know, we're Americans too. We're African Americans, but we're also Americans, you know, that we deserve the same respect that everybody else gets. You know, and that's what I want to put out there, and I think people are realizing that about Jordan, because they're looking at Jordan as an American kid, not just an African American kid.
Right.
Now, so obviously you plan to retry the case, or you're going to try to get him to retry the case?
Oh, they are going to retry the case, yes, sir.
Okay.
How much
Yeah.
time? He got 60 years, right?
60
He's
years.
facing, right, 60
Yeah,
years.
60 years, and for him being 47, that's life, you know, already.
So what would you like to see? What conviction would you like?
But I want that conviction on that first charge.
First-degree murder.
Either first or second degree, because a lot of people on the first degree, they don't understand that, you know, it could be 10 seconds of premeditation,
Right.
you know. But a lot of the lay persons, they think, well, premeditation means that you have to go home and think about it and come back with a gun or whatever. So a lot of people don't realize that premeditation could be 10 seconds, you know.
What do you say to those people out there that say, hey, he got 60 years, he's going to die in jail, you know, why retry it and spend more money and more time doing that?
Yeah, what's justice for you?
Yeah, what's justice for you?
The reason why is because, you know, I can just say to your listeners, your mother, your father, ask them this question. If somebody murdered your son, if somebody murdered your daughter, wouldn't you like the world to know that that person did so and they were not justified in doing so? You know, no matter what happens as far as time is concerned, your mother, your father would want the world to know that you are not justified in killing my kid. And that's what I want the world to know. No matter what, I don't care if it's manslaughter, I don't care if it's second degree, first degree. What I want the world to know, you are not justified in murdering Jordan Davis.
Have you had a chance to say any words to Michael Dunn at all?
No, they don't allow you to say any words to him at this point, you know. And he has not came to us. His family has never come to us and said their apologies. You know, if my son had did something to their family member, regardless how the trial went, I would say to them that, you know, hey, I'm very sorry what my son did, you know.
Sorry for your loss.
Sorry for your loss. Never heard anything from him or his family members.
Your wife has said that she wanted to visit him, though.
No, he said he wanted to visit him.
Oh, I said I wanted
you
to
said you
visit him.
wanted
When
to.
this is all said and done, you know, because since he refused to understand that he did something wrong, you know, I want him to sit down in front of me and I want to explain why it was wrong to shoot a bullet into Jordan Davis, hit his lungs, hit his aorta, make him bleed to death and choke on his own blood. I want him to see from the father of Jordan Davis why it's wrong to murder my son, because he doesn't understand why that was wrong.
Now, you said you've also been in contact with Trayvon Martin's parents as well throughout this whole ordeal. Did they reach out to you to show their support?
Yes. During the trial, Tracy would call me. Sometimes he called me 6:30 in the morning, wake me up. But that's all good. He knows he can call me 24 hours. I text back and forth with Sabrina all the time. And I let them know that Trayvon is in our prayers all the time. Any justice I get for Jordan, I try to get for Trayvon, you know. Anytime they need me to do anything for them, I'm always available for Trayvon's family. I tell them how much I love them, and we are in constant contact.
Now, fights like this, cost a lot of money. So how can somebody help, and if they want to help you with your fight and help you with the things that you're doing, how can they donate and kind of financially support you?
We have a website that says www.walkwithjordan.org. Okay, and on that website we have a donation page. Lucy has one side that she's doing, and the other side is for Jordan Davis Foundation that I'm doing, and there's a donate page, and you can donate through PayPal right on that.
And where does the money go?
The money goes to Jordan Davis Foundation, and then what we would do is the kids, like in high school, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids, we let them know that, you know, we used to have, when I grew up, you know, you had trips to Washington, you get to see legislators and whatnot.
Queens. You're from
I'm
Queens,
from
New York?
Queens. Yeah,
Queens,
we
New
used to
York,
go
okay.
to trips to Washington and all that. These kids, they don't have school trips or anything anymore. They don't know about the government, how the government works. If you teach them at an early age how the government works, how you don't need to have your pants down to your ankles, and how you have to present yourself a certain way so people will respect you, that's what we want to teach them. We want to have mentors for our kids. How many times you look around, we don't have any mentors for our kids. And
Right.
so
We were
we
just
want to
talking about
create
that the
yeah.
other day.
See?
You bring up a good point too, because you said, you know, kids some nowadays don't respect themselves. Do you think that's one reason that they look at us the way that they do and think that they have to attack us at the first thought of attacking us?
Right. They don't understand that we helped build this country and all the things that we did in this country. Just like when they have Black History Month. Black History Month, we should be in American history. It's supposed to be part of America. We shouldn't carve out a certain month that we celebrate. The month to me right now is just to educate. Mm-hmm. But you know what? When you open up an American history book in any school in the nation, it should include all the things that African Americans did in that history book. Mm-hmm. Otherwise you're going to have Irish Month and Italian Month and, Polish Month, So why do you have Black History Month? You should celebrate the history of America with all the history, And when I grew up, I'm 60 years old. When I grew up, they didn't tell you anything about Booker T. Washington. They didn't tell you anything about, Benjamin Banneker. They didn't tell you anything about the people the first traffic light or anything like that. We had to learn on our own. All we had to listen to is Malcolm X and all the other civil rights leaders. That's what we listened to. But we didn't know about the building blocks of this country were African Americans and how deeply they were involved and that slaves built the White House. We didn't hear anything about that when I grew up.
Now, how do you feel because it's we'll say it's a white and black issue or a race crime? There's so many black on black murders and crimes, and it seems like a lot of those get thrown right under the rug. You never really hear about it.
Until it's a race issue.
Until it's a race issue. Race issues all over the paper, all over the news, Right. But we're killing each other, you know what I mean? And that's part of the problem.
We're killing each other way more than they're killing us.
Right, and it has to do with pride because, you could take a kid that's considered himself a gangster, right? Mm-hmm. You take that kid, you get a foundation like the Jordan Davis Foundation, and you take that kid to Aruba, or you take that kid to Italy, or you take that kid to somewhere out of their neighborhood and show them something different than they see every day, And when they come back, that's all they talk about. Man, we went to Rome, Italy, and I saw, everything that I could see, Colosseum and whatever, mm-hmm. Arc de Triomphe, in France, We've had other kids in the inner city that we've taken into other countries, different programs, and I found out that all they talk about for the next 10 years is that trip. So I'm just saying that the reason why these kids act up, they see drug dealers on the street in their neighborhood. They see them run around with cash in their hands. They see prostitutes. Everything they see puts them in that frame of mind. This is what I have to do to make money.
Right.
They see people, all they want to do is go to clubs and hang out all the time, 24 hours, come back home 5 o'clock in the morning. That's all they know. That's all they see. If you take that very same kid and expose them to education, expose them to travel, that kid will come back with a different frame of mind. And that's what we want to do, change minds. Because you can say all you want. If you don't change the mind of a kid where they have pride in themselves, you'll never get through to that kid.
No, you're absolutely
And that's 100%
right.
correct. There's so many kids I know that have never left their neighborhood, their own circumference of where they live, and they've never even when I was growing up, I didn't know I lived in a bad neighborhood until we moved.
Right.
When does your life go back to normal? I mean, I know it'll never go back to normal because you lost a son, but at what point do you say, okay, I just got to be normal again, as close to it as possible?
Before I could really start healing, the two things that I want Michael Dunn to be charged and convicted, for killing my son. Mm-hmm. That's the first thing. The second thing is I want to go to the state capitol in Florida where the Stand Your Ground started in 2005, and I want them to rewrite Stand Your Ground. Stop giving a shield to these people that off the top of their head, if they think they're being threatened, that they can use force. When I say that in his situation it was a race issue also, to me it was a hate crime also. Mm-hmm. What I'm not saying is it's not an indictment on people of non-color, of white people. It's not an indictment. This was an individual. So I don't want people to run out of their house and saying this is a black and white issue and we hate white people. I don't want them to ever do that because that's not what Jordan Davis was about. I want them to know this was a hate crime and this person, he hated these kids, Mm-hmm. And he didn't fear these kids. He hated these kids,
Right.
Because they were black?
Because he didn't have a connection with these kids. He didn't have a connection with these kids. And that's what it's all about, having a connection. If you go to some churches, sometimes it's an all-black church. Sometimes you go to churches, an all-white church. When people start interconnecting in those churches and everybody say, you're not so bad. A lot of times you meet a lot of people of different races on your job, and you get to talk with them and you find out, they're all right. Mm-hmm. It's because you don't have a chance to have a conversation with other people of other colors. Once you do, you realize they're not any different than you are.
Right.
Right.
I once told my attorney, I said, 99% of the DNA is the same. It's only 1%, less than 1% of DNA for the texture of your hair and the color of your skin. Just 1%. 99% of your DNA is the same as white people. So we have to understand we're the same, you know? And we have so many conversations and so much grief over that less than 1% of our DNA,
Right.
which is the color of your hair and the color of your skin.
But to Michael Dunn, black people are animals and they listen to thug music.
Thug music, yeah.
Hey, I don't want to see nobody else get killed, but it would be interesting to see how the stand your ground law would work if it was a black person standing their ground against a white person. It would be interesting to see how that would play out.
And the problem with that is that, you know, you go before a judge and it's lopsided because if the person is the shooter and the person, let's say the father is a judge, or that person's father is an attorney, or that person's father is a garbage man, or that person's father is a street sweeper, it depends on who your father, who your family is, whether they're going to give you stand your ground. They won't admit it, but you know what? They always look at what you are, what your parents are
What your
before
background is, correct.
exactly what your background is, you know? And so in addition to that, in stand your ground is there is no compensation for your family. Once somebody says that stand your ground is in order, if you try to have a civil suit like they did in the O.J. Simpson case, you cannot have a civil suit in your stand your ground. A lot of people don't know that.
Right.
You know, so your family has no voice in it, you know. So stand your ground is just tough on everybody. I think it puts people against each other. And if anybody wants to help me, your viewers or your listeners out there want to help me and help Jordan's mother, write to your people in Tallahassee, the state capital of Florida, and ask them to rewrite Stand Your Ground.
Well, we
and
appreciate
again,
you joining us today.
walkwithjordan.org is the
Absolutely.
website.
Walkwithjordan.org, walkwithjordandavis.org.
Oh, Walk with Jordan Davis.
Is it? I'm sorry.
Walk with Jordan.
Walk with
What's your
Jordan.
regular 9 to 5, man?
I'm retired. I'm retired from Delta Airlines, 32 years Delta Airlines.
Okay.
I used to work in sales.
Well, thank you for joining us. We definitely appreciate it. And next time we in Tallahassee, we're gonna come down. We're gonna come to the house and we're gonna stay with you for a little bit.
Come on
Jacksonville.
down.
And
Yeah,
get
come to
some of that
Jacksonville.
food and just get some
Yeah,
of
why
that
would it
family
be in
love.
Tallahassee? It's
Yeah, it's
Jacksonville.
Jacksonville.
Oh, Jacksonville. I'm sorry.
Easy.
I'm from New York. I'm from Queens, man.
You're from Queens.
Next time you want to come to
yeah,
Queens,
I'm
you
from
come-
South Ozone Park.
Hey, Shay, I'm from Queensville. You can come on through. It's the Breakfast Club. It's Ron Davis.